Marcella. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? And as Marcella said, this is being recorded, so you will get this as well. So let's get started. Who is type into the questions box, right? Who is planning a career move within the next 6 months? Oh my gosh, this is the era of the great resignation, isn't it? So I'd be curious, who is planning a career move in the next 6 months? And I'll read off some of those. So here I am, while you're typing into the questions box, I am your topic expert, Robin Cabral. And oh my gosh, it says over 25 years. It's closer to 30 at this point. And I've had that experience working with and for not-for-profits. Presently, I own a small boutique consulting firm in the Northeast United States called Development Consulting Solutions. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a certified fundraising executive. I have a master's in philanthropy and fund development, and MFIA means I am a member of the Fundraising Institute of Australia, and I've raised millions in campaigns. But I've also been in your seat, and please keep those comments coming in the questions box. I see Mary saying not sure, maybe, and Crete saying me. So if you're going to be thinking about career move in the next 6 months, let me know. And I've actually got my certification in career coaching. So I have, over my time, moved up the career ladder from both local to worldwide organizations, small to larger ones. And as I mentioned, I got so interested in this a few years back that I became an ICC certified accredited career coach. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today, is how do we actually position yourself to build your brand, both as a professional in the field and maybe someone who is looking for some career advancement opportunities. And Jennifer here says, potentially, who else out there? I mean, there's 55 of you on this webinar. Who else out there is thinking about maybe moving on, moving up, moving to someplace? So here's what we will cover. Caroline, all right, she says, yes, exclamation point. We will be looking at, oh my goodness, leveraging social media to advance your fundraising career. We will look at your fundraising resume and how does it fit into where does it fit and how does it fit into the digital world today? And then how do we create that persona that stands out and gets you recognized? And then we'll look at things like LinkedIn to make it your best friend. And yeah, your paper resume still counts for something, so we'll take a look at that. And then we'll talk about how you actually move up that career ladder. And let's see, Amanda says, yep, up. And Caroline says, yes. So come on, keep those coming. I'm curious. All right. So why do we leverage, or why leveraging social media to advance in your fundraising career? There's a picture of me. So why? So we're in this section, we are going to cover why leveraging social media is important to your fundraising career, and what are some significant changes in career advancement that you need to be knowledgeable about. Well, Marcella and I were just talking about this today. How many of you out there feel like there has been more technological advances, let's just say in the last year, than there has been in the last decade, or maybe in the last decade versus the last 50 years before that, right? This pace of modernization has really is at a pace that we've never seen before, right? How many of you feel that way? I feel like a dinosaur some days. I can't keep up. So this exponential advancement has sped up the pace of work and how business operates to such an extent that our offices no longer have solid and defined boundaries. And how many of you, type into the questions box, feel as if the pandemic has accelerated that even more, that we're moving quicker and harder and faster and longer than we ever have pre-pandemic? I'm just going to say, Yes, I'm like, how many of you feel exhausted out there at the pace of things these days? I'm seeing them coming into the questions box. Yes, exhausted. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Keep it coming, right? This is your event session. What we do know about social media, and here are some important stats. Look at that. It's crazy exhausting. Amen, Jennifer. It sure is. More than 70% of people, get this, more than 70% of people found their current job through their personal networks. How many of you got your last job through someone that you knew? Just type into the questions box. How many of you did? But we know that networking isn't just something that's done in person. It's all moved into this, we've all moved into this digital sphere, right? Let's face it. All I do is Zoom. So we've all moved online into this digital space, and social media is such a critical aspect of that now. Look at this last stat. 79% of job seekers are now using social media as part of their job search efforts. How many of you are part of that 79%, right? Look at this. Creed says, I did. Donna says, I did, right? Who else? So, for those of you at the start of your career, that number has jumped to an astounding 86% who are using social media for your search efforts, okay? But social media is where this content gets distributed, it gets amplified as people discover it, and it gets shared. So you need to position yourself as someone who has influence. I mean, there's a new word out there, right? And what is it? It's called, well, they're called micro-influencers or influencers. It's a thing now, right? So influence, knowledge, and power have become digitized big time, right? That's why you're all here in this webinar. So let's just do some compare and contrast, right? This is going to make me feel so old. So in the past, research was done in libraries. Yikes. How many people have been to a library? I can't remember the last time. Years ago, not that long ago, we lived in these isolated, social, regional, even local islands, right? How many of you would say, yep, I remember those days, right? Years ago in the past, our resumes were the only thing that represented our mark in the world. Who remembers that, right? Like, that's all we sent out, and that's what represented us, was this piece of paper, right? How many of you remember those days? I feel so old. Now everything can be done online. I sit at my desk for like 6 hours straight every day. I never get up. Everything is done online, right? And we can connect with others across the country and even across the globe. For instance, Marcella asked me today, where are you, Robin, in the world? Because sometimes I'm actually in Australia and you wouldn't even know it. We can be anywhere these days. And everything, 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 everything can be digitized and found online, including our networks, right? How many of you with me still? Okay. Now, where does our fundraising resume fit into this new technologically speeding digital world? So we're going to look at in this section what your resume once was, and we touched upon that a little bit, what your resume is now, and how Google really is your new resume, okay? Years ago, and I keep saying years ago, like we're talking 20 or 30 years ago, but not that long, your resume was the only way that you could apply for a job and get the attention of a prospective employer. right? It was that summary about you, and guess what? You had absolute control over it. Now, legalities, you had to be honest on a job application, but your resume was your marketing piece. So you could add or omit what you wanted on it, okay? Here's a great example of someone's resumes, and yes, I have done and do resumes as part of career coaching, right? This was it. This is what you got. This is what represented you. How many of you remember those days, the good old days, right? This is it right here, okay? Yeah, well, it ain't that anymore, right? Your resume now needs to be accompanied. You still have your resume, but it needs to be accompanied by a whole host of other digital possibilities as well. An employer gets a resume, gets applicants who apply, and they get hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. I asked someone, how many did you get? We got 300 applicants for this particular position. Are you kidding me? 300, right? So you want to make sure that you stand out, and we'll talk about paper resumes later on how to do that, and that you at least get into the right pile, and hopefully you get into the top of that pile. The primary function of your resume always, always, always was to get the interview, right? And that is particularly more so in this digital age. It's to get the interview. It's not to get you the job. It's to get you in the door. Now, today, the internet rules over resumes. There's a new resume in town. Guess what it is? It's Google. Everything is Google. Just Google it. You know, I grew up with encyclopedias. We don't have those anymore. What do we have? Google. That's what it's all become, okay? What we do know is that, look at these stats. These are important stats to keep in mind. It's undoubtedly a fact that all recruiters will look at your social media, okay? It's undoubtedly a fact. And more than 57%, not well over, but half, have rejected applicants because of what they have found. How many of you out there have screened an applicant and gone and looked at their social profiles? Be honest. How many of you were hiring for a position, and where do you go and look to see something about them? How many of you? Just type in yes or no, yes or no. 40 in the questions box, of course. 44% of the time, employees will offer someone a job because they liked what Google turned up about them. Look at that, almost half of the time. And then this data is getting a little bit old, I have to be quite honest. In 2018, this Harris poll found that about 47% of employers indicate that if they can't find a social media presence, they won't bring them in for an interview. How many feel like that? Like if you cannot find a social profile on someone, you're like, oh, that's interesting, right? So I see some people, Jenny saying yes with a smiley face, Haley saying absolutely, Jacqueline, yes, right? Who else out there is looking at the social profiles, right? And how many of you say, if I can't find anything, gee, that's kind of odd, isn't it, in this day and age, right? You start to wonder, don't you? Now, how do you actually go about creating this digital persona that stands out? Okay, there are a couple of steps that you need to take. Let's see here. Preet says, and I hope that I'm saying your name correctly. During my interview for my current role, the ED commented that she was impressed by my LinkedIn account and my accomplishments. Yes, cool. Okay, I'm saying it right too. Cool. All right, look at that. So they're definitely taking a look at them. So you need to step back and do a few things. You need to determine, what do you want to be known for as a fundraiser or someone in the not-for-profit sector? What is your specialty? Step number 2, how do you build your online profile? And step number 3, how do you leverage your online presence to rank higher in the new encyclopedia, the new resume, Google, right? How many of you know what your area of specialty is in the not-for-profit sector? Just type into the questions box if you know it, or you think you know it, or you feel it. What is that? What do you specialize in? So how do you determine what you want to be known as for a fundraiser? Well, there's a few steps that you can take. Number 1 is determine what adjectives you want to be known for and analyze what is currently out there about you, right? So what is it that you want to be known for? Let's see what we got coming in. Ellen, grant writing, good. Specialty, absolutely high in demand. Great. Annual fund is my wheelhouse. Awesome. All right, so you're an annual fund specialist. Who else out there? Who else has a specialty? Right? What do you want to be known for? Some people that I've worked with has been major gifts or plan giving, right? Haley, relationship builder. Awesome, awesome, great. Who else? How many times have you Googled yourself and looked at what is currently being said about you in the digital world? I say do it every month at least. See what turns up, okay? That's what I'm going to tell you. Google yourself. How many of you are Googling yourself at least once a month? All right, and Jennifer says CRM, database, data analytics. That's important. What's CRM, Jennifer? So how many of you Google yourself at least once a month and see what is it that the search engines are pulling up? What are they saying about me? Okay. And then do you go to your social media sites and scrub them? You look at your Facebook, look at your LinkedIn, look at your Twitter. Scrub them is basically review them. I recommend this. So a couple of things to start doing. Define what you want to be known as, grants, annual fund, whatever, and then go take a look on Google, set up a schedule, a to-do list that repeats every month. Google yourself, scrub your profiles. Make sure that they fit the persona that you want to be known for. Okay, so what did you find? And what information is contradicting to that impression or that persona that you want to have? Okay, what information? I know one client who was talking about community fundraising, and yet they wanted to be a specialist in major gift work. That's contradictory, okay? And if possible, remove the items that contradict with what you would like to be known for. Sometimes you can't do that, but certainly keep scrubbing Facebook, scrubbing Twitter, scrubbing LinkedIn, because guess what? Google's indexing that for searches. And once Google indexes it, particularly LinkedIn, if you notice when you search for someone, where do they what shows up about them? Their LinkedIn profile, because Google is indexing that. Then it gets stuck on like this permanent Google record. All right? So make sure that you do this on a frequent basis. Then, okay, so now you've got to build up, your specialty, you scrubbed it. Now you've got to build up this profile so that it matches your persona. So think about which sites you want to be active on. Like what will have the most impact on your job searches? The common ones, of course, survey says, number 1, LinkedIn. Number 2, Twitter. Number 3, Facebook, right? We know that LinkedIn is mostly seen as that networking site for professionals, and this is where prospective employers, clients, and peers will seek you out first. So that would be a hint, right, to go there and work on that one. When it comes to social media sites, be sure that you have your profile completed. Cross every T and dot every I on your profile. Leave nothing undone. Oh, and don't be one of these people. Check your spelling. That can be deadly, right? Like your employer looks and goes, oh, they can't even spell fundraising or fundraising, right? Grammar. This day and age, we have something called Grammarly that does it for you. Makes you look like a superstar. Be sure that, though, everything that you put on your LinkedIn profile, your Twitter profile, your whatever, reinforces that persona that you want to be known for. So, Ellen, your specialty is grant writing. If I were to look at your LinkedIn right now, does it reflect that in every sense that that's what you want to be known for? Just type into the questions box. It is a question. It is a direct question. Ellen says, I don't Google myself once a month. And Jennifer says, customer CRM, customer relation management tools. Okay. Is that like fundraising databases, so forth? Ellen says, no, it doesn't. All right. So you've got some steps to take. All right. Right. How about Crete? Does your profile represent your annual fund specialty? Or Haley, you as a relationship builder? Or Jennifer as a CRM whiz? Tell me in the questions box. All right, so you've scrubbed it, you've looked, you've started to build your online profile. Now, how do you leverage it so that you start to rank high? Okay. You want to be recognized and indexed by the key search engines like Google. You need to grow your presence beyond LinkedIn by expanding your web-based footprint. So, how do you do that? Well, you be active in online forums and groups, including those on LinkedIn. There are tons and tons and tons of not-for-profit groups on LinkedIn, and tons of fundraising groups on LinkedIn. Contribute on all social outlets and be seen as a specialist. How many of you actively post on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, professional content, pertaining to grant writing, Ellen, or create annual fund, or Jennifer, CRMs, right? How many of you have a blog, right? Blogs are great because guess what? I was told early on in my consulting to start a blog because Google is indexing that blog every time you produce a new blog. You should do so on a regular basis, include all the pertinent keywords that you want to be known for. Google is indexing that, searching it, and boosting you based upon what it's finding, okay? So start a blog. You can start one on medium.com, update it regularly, share great tips, and this includes your profiles as well. And then be known for the keywords that you want to be known for, even on LinkedIn. If you go to my profile, you will notice right at the top, and don't do that now because you're on this great webinar, but you will notice that I have keywords, grant writing, fundraising audit, all of those words, and they're all peppered throughout my LinkedIn profile. And of course, on places like Twitter, you want to use those pertinent hashtags. All right, there's my profile right there. And you will see, look at that, if I put on my glasses, fundraising consulting, fundraising career coach, fundraising training, audits and plans, grant writing, okay? That's me, right? So let me just stop here and look at the questions box. Jennifer says yes. Jennifer says no, it doesn't. Crete says no, just searched myself and found a post 6 from the top of Google. And it pulled a post I published in 2018 regarding donating to my alma mater, specifically my sailing team. While this popped up. There you go. The power of indexing. Crete says, definitely need to scrub the rest of my accounts and start Googling myself more regularly, and recently posted about Giving Tuesday on my LinkedIn. Yes, good job. And where would you suggest developing a blog if you're just starting out? If you want to grab a following, something like medium.com where there's a built-in audience of people who are searching is a good place. Okay. Whoops. Any other questions or comments before we move to the next section? Crete says, thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Questions? Any others? And I'm just taking a sippy break there as well. Well, I don't see any. All right, so here's what we're going to look at next. I love LinkedIn, and I think that you should love it too. You should make it one of your best friends to build your professional fundraising, not-for-profit persona. Okay, so we're going to look at how do you begin to do that, right? How do you optimize your profile? There's a lot to it. And then I'm going to share with you some advanced tips on making LinkedIn work for you. You want to make LinkedIn your workhorse. And so I'm going to give you some what I call LinkedIn hacks here, okay? Tips and hacks, okay? Now, again, I'm reiterating, but you want to focus on areas that will have the most impact on job searches, right? Those are LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, LinkedIn is the networking site for professionals, right? So you want to make sure that that is where you are at, right? Okay. And then when it comes to social media sites, you want to be sure that you have your profile filled out completely again, and that you cross every I or dot every T, cross whatever that is, and check spelling errors. Okay, so we already kind of went over that. But optimize your tagline, all right? All social media sites have an algorithm. We know Facebook has an algorithm, right? We know Facebook has an algorithm. And I've actually done some webinars on beating the social media algorithm, okay? So you need to be able to weight your tagline based on keywords so that you're getting noticed in that, okay? So if you look at my LinkedIn profile, you will see that my tagline is full of keywords, okay? Absolutely full of them. And you want to use keywords and descriptors and deliverables in your tagline. Remember what mine said, fundraising consultant, grant writer, whatever. What we do know is that hiring managers will use these keywords to find people that like you. So they'll actually look for grant writers. They'll look for annual fund specialists. I want to find someone with donor perfect experience, which reminds me, right? Do not do what most people do. How many of you on LinkedIn let your LinkedIn default to your current job title? Yes or no? How many of you actually allow LinkedIn to default to that? Don't do it, okay? Use a professional photo, okay? What we do know, how many of you actually have a professional photo on your LinkedIn profile? If you don't, get one done. Sometimes in this pandemic day and age, you can take a pretty good picture and give it to someone and they can create like a studio background and cut out the background and put a studio background. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile and you see my new picture, which is not the one here, you will notice that was a picture in front of the ocean. And I was standing next to my partner in Australia, and someone actually photo edited it to add in a studio background, okay? But make sure that your photo is professional and appropriate for your industry and your target job, and that it doesn't have blurs, doesn't have distractions, and it doesn't have other people in it, right? Make sure that you look approachable. Someone asked me this a while back. There is a tool that you can use. Okay, there's a tool that you can use that sends your picture out and has people rate it on approachableness. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what that website is. If someone knows what that is or wants to find it in Google and put it in the questions box, I will share what that is with everyone. But it will actually send your photo out there and have people rate it and rank it based upon your approachableness. And you'll get a score back that says you are 95% approachable. That photo is. Okay, cool. And I see here, is it Donna? Donna King. Donna says, I do, but I highly recommend taking a photo on a white wall with your phone in portrait mode to get yourself a headshot if you can't afford a photographer. Yeah, great idea, Donna. Great. All right, so claim, did you know that in LinkedIn, you can claim a vanity URL? Did you know that? What does that mean? Now, it is a lot easier to point people to your LinkedIn profile when you have a vanity URL. What do I mean by that? My URL does not say LinkedIn.com Robin Cabral. It says LinkedIn.com/fundraising coach and consultant. I claimed that vanity URL for myself, and you can do the same. Grant Writer Extraordinaire. Okay, you can do that. All right. Otherwise, you're going to get this generic one, and you're going to have to put that on your business cards, your resume materials. No. So a good tip is, how many of you knew about the vanity URL? Is that like an epiphany? Like, oh, wow, cool, right? So just Google, how do you create a vanity LinkedIn URL, and it will give you instructions on how to do that, okay? You should also, and you can also sync your profile and your resume because you want the two to look the same. So in most job application scenarios, hiring managers will find your LinkedIn profile after, if their resume has intrigued them enough, after they have looked at your resume. And it's important that the two are in sync with accurate information and say the same thing. How many of you have looked to see whether or not your LinkedIn profile is actually synced with your resume? Okay? Just be curious to know. How many of you are having like, oh yeah, this is a good idea? Also be aware of the first 40 characters in your LinkedIn profile summary. Oh, wait a minute, I'm skipping a section here. The summary section is 2,000 character space, and that's where you can showcase your key accomplishments. And this is where you can outline to your employers and clients what you have become known for. I have bullets in mine. Again, keywords. I'm stepping people through keywords. And you want to remove any fluff and cliches from the summary and make it action-packed, jam-packed, and let your personality shine through, but again with keywords. And what I didn't know until I started studying LinkedIn is that the first 40 characters in your LinkedIn profile summary are what show up on your phone, okay? So you want to make those count. And you can see here a screenshot from my very own LinkedIn profile. And there's my keywords. What do you need help with? Fundraising coaching, fundraising bullets, easy, bing, bang, boom, right? Keywords. You'll get indexed. You'll get searched that way. And you can just open up the rest of it to read the summary, okay? But you want to keep that summary as concise as possible. Oh, thank you, Katie. Katie found the website. I got to mark this down. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Photo Feeler. That's Photo Feeler. PHOTOFEELER.com for that website that will put your picture out there and get it rated on how approachable it is. Okay? Cool. Photo Feeler. All right. Thank you so much. I knew someone would find that. All right. Let's keep on moving. So here we go. Here's a screenshot of my keywords and my summary. Look at that. Bing, bam, boom. Yours should look like this too. Should not be, what do we learn in direct mail? Should not be text dense. Just people will not read it. Again, we've already said this. Make sure your profile is 100% complete. It'll place you higher. This will get you ranked higher in search results. You want to make sure that your education and your interests are filled out. And insert the applicable information, being conscious about the overall impact it will have. Does it support your personal brand? Look at mine. Keywords, 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 keywords all over the place. That's all you see because I'm being indexed. Make sure you include details that help enhance your brand and make your profile stronger. Here's mine. I've gotten rid of this picture because I felt like I looked too funny, but this is it. And you will actually see, look at the top graphic. What does it have? Keywords, 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 keywords. Okay, cool. I cannot stress enough, right? Keywords are important throughout your profile, not just in your tagline. So hiring managers and recruiters can find your profile using the inevitable keyword search. So I recommend that you look at something like Wordle.net here to your right. You can cut and paste your job description that you're applying for that epitomizes what you want to be, put it in there, and it's going to pull out some keywords that it sees within that text. So use, how many of you knew about Wordle? Great tool, right? To find those keywords. How many of you actively solicit recommendations and endorsements? If you don't, you should. So have colleagues, bosses, clients, and others provide recommendations about your work and capabilities. You know, that's the best kind. What do? I mean, I'm on Google, I'm looking at GPS watches for fitness. And what am I looking at? What are other people saying about this model, right? Social proof, absolutely critical to maintain that, okay? So reach out to people, ask them for recommendations, and the more qualitative ones that you have, the better they will be. Now, I bet you didn't know this, but on your skills and endorsements section, as you see here, right here, skills and endorsements, you can, this section allows you to create an instant association with the different skill sets you have. As you can see, fundraising, coaching, career advancement. You can, of course, be careful in choosing the right skills for what you're seeking and what will support your brand. And your connections can provide easy endorsements. And did you know that you can delete the ones that you don't want to be known for? And you can move these around. So I actually moved fundraising coaching up because that's what I wanted to be known for. For instance, here we go. Look at this. All right, highly endorsed for fundraising. And then I chose fundraising coaching and fundraising career advancement coaching. And I wonder what those are up to now because this was quite a while ago, okay? How many of you actually showcase your work on your LinkedIn profile? If you don't, please do. This is a great place to show publications that you've written, projects, courses, any voluntary experience that you've had. You can actually upload videos, white papers, PDFs, PowerPoints, all of those that reinforce your personal brand and show you as an expert. And again, you will want to use keywords in the descriptions of those particular items, okay? So here I have a sample shot of my voluntary experience, okay? Here are some quick, more advanced tips or hacks on making LinkedIn work for you. Don't get in the habit of, don't be that person that shares those minor profile edits, okay? Yes, a photo is mandatory. Make sure it's a high quality headshot or an equivalent. Be sure that your headline has keywords for what you want to be known as. And past job experiences must tell a story about how you did things, okay? The summary section should list your competitive advantage. You should have a specialties section that, again, lists your keywords because that's going to get picked up by search engines. You want to create a portfolio of your work, have links to your website, show your personality. This is where your resume gets expanded out and you can show your portfolio. And certainly, as we mentioned, be active in those LinkedIn groups, okay? Now let's move on to, and we've got 15 minutes, so we've got just a couple of quick sections to get through and then we'll be done. But let's talk about your resume in a digital world. What does that mean? So we're going to look at how you tend to your paper resume and how do you optimize it to get. I don't want to forsake our paper resume, so we're going to take a look at it. So of course, enhance it, and you can post it on the internet because these days employers are searching for people on Career Builder and Monster and Indeed. In fact, this just reminds me, I've got to make a sticky note to search for someone with donor perfect experience. See, I'm going to actively do that. Okay, how many of you have done that for some other position that you've had out there? Okay, just made that note. And on all the other sites like AFP International, whatever chapter you belong to, if you belong to Women in Development, and any plan giving councils, okay? Layout and formatting of your paper resume is important. It needs to be, just like any direct mail piece, easy to read because you have about 9 seconds to make an impact with an employer. So use things like white space, bullets, all those kinds of things, and your achievements should be quantifiable, meaning that you can point to that you increased revenues by 90% year over year. Don't, just as you would in direct mail, don't have those big blocks of text and long lists of bullets because people just don't read them, their eyes don't absorb them. Make sure that your name is in a large font, but don't make it the largest. Have it at the top of your print resume. Include your contact information in the document body, not in the header or the footer. Because of applicant keyword scanning, when a computer goes through it, it's not going to pick it up if it's not in the body. Use a phone number and ideally text one that's mobile for text. How many of you have actually gotten texted by a prospective employer in some form? Type into the questions box. And of course, using that Vanity URL and other social icons and links, right? Okay. And then your paper resume summary section should list out the job target in the largest font. Use value statements as to how you add value to the prospective role, okay? Funders, geez, my mind is in fundraising. Employers want to know how have you raised more money, saved more money, or made processes better? And they want you to quantify that. Those are the 3 things that you need to be able to state in your value statement and in your accomplishments. 3 things, that's it. And I see so many resumes that come across my desk that don't do that. You should have a core competency section. Again, keywords, right? You want to match the job description that's relevant or whatever position it is that you're looking for. And use topical nouns instead of verbs, because some employers use ATS, which is applicant tracking systems, okay? Again, your work experience should be quantifiable. You should answer, why is this important? Why did it matter that you took this action? It should be verb-based. You need to answer the 3 questions. How have you made more money for the company? How have you saved more money? Or how have you streamlined processes? That's it. And you want to include actual numbers and percentages. Absolutely. You want to show yourself adaptable to new challenges, and you want to have a good balance between history and forward thinking. All right? You can use things like graphs and tables, you know, text boxes, and those kinds of things. And you want to make sure that you can use borders, but I would be careful with graphics and borders. You don't want to go overboard, okay? And definitely your education. So include your education, certification, CFRE, MFIA, any relevant trainings like Donor Perfect certifications, Razor's Edge, and you know, what do you do about dates when you last graduated 20 years ago, right? So be consistent about, do you include them or not, and be consistent in all of those. And you know, GPAs matter in financial industries, so we're kind of, you know, that's important to include. Now the last section here, and then we'll call Marcella back on, is about mastering your career advancement in the digital world. So I'm going to give you some handy tips to keep in mind when working in the digital world, and last but not least, some more hacks. All right? So here's some handy tips. Tip number 1, don't include things that would help someone find out where you live or work, especially if you're blanketing the internet in today's day and age. Surprise, surprise. All right, hit number 2, don't send a resume solely by email. Send a nicer version by mail. You'll likely stand out. How many of you still do that? Type into the questions box. Yes, I still send something by mail. Here's an even bigger tip that my career coach taught me. When sending it by mail, send it priority or FedEx. Because what is the one thing that we do when we get a priority or a FedEx package? We wonder what's in it, and we open it up right away. Aha, okay? Certainly pay attention to the paper you print your resume on, because paper says everything. Use bond paper of at least 28 pounds. Okay, that's a thick paper. Make sure that you're using a font. I think you should use a font of 12 to 14 for anything these days. How many of you feel that same way? Just type in yes, right? Like my eyes hurt. Every item on your resume and profile should have a purpose, and that purpose is to get invited for the interview. And again, you must sync your resume and your social profiles. And you need to ask yourself, when you are looking at your profile or your resume, will this item help me to get invited for an interview, or will this item seem too puzzling or off-putting or even a red flag? Good question to ask. And unless it's expressly a plus for the job, such as where it relates to the mission or culture, you know, don't mention disabilities. I had one client who had a sight disability, and he said, should I mention it? I said, no, you should be hired for your abilities, right? Not hired for your disabilities or disqualified for them right off, okay? And don't use jargon, okay? And be sure to use keywords when posting your resume on your social profiles. Everything is searchable and indexed. Don't include references. One time I went for a job. This is a true story. I love to share stories. And guess what? It was the person that it came down to, me and that person. I knew who she was. And I had included my references on my resume. Oh, okay, right? Like some of us do, right? How many of us do that? Thought, oh yeah, no problem. And one of my references was her best friend. So you can guess how that all unfolded from there when they decided to contact my references because they were listed and not even ask me. You can understand where that went, okay? Do include recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. And lastly, remember that some employers hate resumes because 82% of them must be checked out. Some love them because they offer an easy way to cut down. And the one thing that you should remember is that hiring is an elimination game, okay? And what could get you eliminated is anything that seems off or looks bad online. And if you want to advance up that career ladder, you gotta consider doing things differently when it comes to, it's about self-promotion. We didn't have to do that years ago, right? And this is not just for anybody who's looking for a job. This is for your current employer. This is for your reputation. This is for your professional credibility. So I'm going to stop there. I love the question from Creed in the questions box. So this is a great time to type in some. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm sorry, but we've been going along and taking your comments and questions right along. So type some questions in that you may have. And then I'll bring Marcella back on to talk about an all-important survey. And I'll look at Creed's question right now. So Creed's question is, would you suggest incorporating a QR code on a paper resume? Yeah, what a great idea. I mean, if you can include a graphic or chart, why not? I think QR codes, particularly, I've spent half my life in Australia, and one of the things that became really big during COVID that people got a lot of use out of or got used to was QR codes, scanning into facilities for COVID check-ins and so forth. So yes, great idea. More and more people are using QR codes. So you can QR code them back to your portfolio on your LinkedIn. Any other questions out there, folks? Great to have you. And remember, Katie says that website is Photo Feeler, F-E-E-L-E-R, Photo Feeler. Let's see, any other questions? Thank you. You are welcome, Creed. Anyone else? Love to take your questions right now. Or if you don't have a question in our remaining 4 minutes, what was your greatest aha moment of this webinar? Like, what was the biggest thing you learned that you're going to take back and go right to your profile or take care of on your resume or do immediately after well, maybe on your holiday break after this webinar? What's your greatest takeaway? Ellen says, thanks, this has been most helpful. You are so welcome, but I'd love to hear your takeaway, Ellen. Anyone have something that they're going to take away if you don't have a question? Let's see here. My takeaway, Ellen, I need to decide what I want to be known for. Great. Mary Shirley Howell. Sounds like I know Mary Shirley Howell, maybe. Do I know Mary Shirley Howell? Just type in LinkedIn keywords. Yes, not job title default. Absolutely. Jenny Powers, need to Google myself immediately. Go do it, Jenny, and tell us what you came up with. Yes. Oh my goodness, Mary Shirley Howell and I, we Rise Up Cohort 20. We went to St. Mary's University and both got our master's degree in philanthropy and fund development together. I knew it. Mary! It's a small, small world, isn't it? Awesome. Beans. Creed says scrubbing all profiles and working on overall personal brand. Love the idea of self-promotion, not being strictly for a new job, but your overall reputation as well. Absolutely, we should be doing that. Mary says, glad to see all your successes. I think I need to retire, though. I'm getting tired, Mary. I don't know about you all. It's been an exhausting year, right? Like, it just feels like you can't keep up. Jennifer, need to work on personal brand and tag words. Get to work. build those keywords. If anyone, I'll just put this out there, wants me to, and Marcella, close your ears, take a look at your LinkedIn profile. More than happy to take a quick glance at it. Won't do an in-depth assessment, but just take a glance at it and just say, hey, you need to do more of this or that, or I'm more than happy to do that for anybody.
Thanks.
Let's see, anyone else? Let's see. I think that's it. All right, Marcella, take it away.
Thank
Close
you,
out this
Robin.
webinar.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Please do complete the survey, like Robin was saying. It'll take you 60 seconds to complete, and your comments always helps us improve our content. So we appreciate anything you have to say about today's session on the survey that will pop up once we close the webinar. And I think you got one last question. I'm not sure.
Right, let's see here. Okay,
Oh,
got it. Did I put
yeah.
my contact information
Mhm.
up? I slid right to that slide right there. So there you go.
Perfect. And you have access to today's slides in your Charity How To library, and you will have access to the recording by tomorrow morning. Again, you will receive an email letting you know it is available for you to view. Thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Please stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you soon again on another Charity How To webinar.
Absolutely. Have a great one. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.